Veteran tattoo artist Andy Capp started his career during his time in the Navy, serving his apprenticeship under Philadelphia Eddie, working alongside legendary tattoo artists like Tommy Napp and Jerry Reds, later in his career working with Paul Rogers and Eric Inksmith. Join us as we talk about his career and his tattoos that he has collected over the years. I have the pleasure of sitting down with legendary tattoo artist Andy Capp. Andy, thank you for doing this, man.
How's it going, brother?
So, let's get into your history.
Okay.
Just speaking with you, you started under Philadelphia Eddie.
Yeah, back in '83.
How did you do that?
I got lucky enough, I was in the Navy, and my ship got stationed in Philadelphia for dry dock. First thing I wanted to do is go get a tattoo, of course. I go to Eddie's, and the rest is history. I was looking to learn, and between him and his two sons, and at the time Jerry Reds was there, and Tommy Napp, and a few other artists that he had there. About 2 years later, it's like I was finished and finished with my stint in the Navy, and the rest is history. I did a lot of traveling throughout the country doing tattoos. Had my own business in Wachung. I've worked for numerous artists around stopping in to visit.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s, if you stopped in to visit and there was an empty chair, they say, sit down.
Nice.
So.
And when you were with Philadelphia Eddie, which one?
It was in Chinatown. It was right on the corner of 9th and Cherry.
Okay.
I'm sure that shop isn't there anymore. I'm not even sure if there's a building there anymore.
Yeah, we were talking about that. I think, if I remember correctly, they tore that down, but I'll have to double check that. But that's one of those shops that, a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about the 9th and Cherry shop.
Right, because they know about Market Street, the 4th and South.
And he also had one in Kensington.
Yeah.
That's where he had his tattoo museum also.
Right, and that was Tommy Napp, Jerry Reds.
Yes.
Right, okay, cool. You had your shop, you said it was in Wachung?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had it for about 3 years before I had some health issues that I had to take care of my health before business. And I had it from 2014 to 2017. Unfortunately, I ended up getting cancer, and my numbers started to scare me. My health's a little bit more important than running a business.
Absolutely. And you're all right now?
I'm in remission 3.5 years now.
Right on, knock on wood.
Yep.
There you go, man. Awesome. So I was introduced to you, not today, of course, your name, I guess, let's say it that way, through Tattoo Tony. And he said,
Good friend of mine.
That, you were the guy that created the cabinetry for his tattoo museum.
Well, it started off with his idea. I just said, give me a scribble and I'll build whatever you want. Because I'm also a union carpenter. Okay. Which I'm getting ready to retire. So it's been a nice run with that. And I did all of his cabinets on my free time. And we finally completed it probably about 5-6 months ago. Every time I stop by, he goes like, you completed my dream. Yeah, dude. And it's an amazing collection that he has. Oh, yeah, and it keeps getting bigger. And the cabinets, not to blow smoke up your ass, but they're pretty sweet, dude. I mean, props for that. Well, each cabinet had to be made to fit in that area. And Tony's building is a very old building, so a lot of things aren't level and a lot of things aren't plumb. So you have to build it to make it look like it is. I noticed that when I set up the camera at his shop. So, yeah, I know all about that because, you level out your camera. I said, Jesus Christ, dude, you can see the floors. And you can see it tilting a little bit. I'm not sure if I caught it or not, but how long did you work for Philadelphia Eddie? I was down there for the last 2 years I was in the service. Had a stint with Gene Bernardo. And I worked underground in Staten Island for a couple of years. That was before they lifted the ban on tattooing. Right. I was in Jersey City for quite a while and Bayonne. But I traveled around a lot. But in between all that, I've always had chances to get out on the road. I've been to 29 different states, mostly on 4 wheels. So is that now how you built your collection that you have of tattoos? And yes. We'll try to get some pictures for you guys, but he's got Paul Rogers, Bob Tyrell. Steve Ferguson. It's like, being out on the road, you get to trade work with a lot of people. I'm like, a lot of them aren't known people, but in the recent years, I've gotten Bob Tyrell and Jen Carmen. Of course, Tony redid my entire right leg for me. Of course, Paul Rogers tattooed me back in the 80s. Eric Inksmith. Oh, wow. Okay. Didn't you apprentice a couple tattoo artists that are... Yes.
One of them was actually working here at the convention, Lorelei. She actually finished up a very large tattoo on my ass recently.
Nice. Okay, cool. I saw the one post, I guess, that you had with her where you were, basically saying you're proud of her.
I am. I really am. She just took the ball and ran with it. I didn't get to complete her apprenticeship, but I did have her doing little tattoos while I was still open. She found someplace else to complete her apprenticeship, and she just took the ball and ran. She's going to be incredible once she gets her name out there.
See, and they're the ones I always like to find. And I've ran into a couple already throughout the 2 or 3 years I've been doing this. You like to see not only the fantastic talent, but the fact that they're holding on to the traditions and the history of it as well, because they were taught right.
That's right. They were taught right, and they understand the history of tattooing. I even had her cutting acetate stencils just so she knew how to do it.
Okay.
I gave her a starting and on making needles, mixing inks, but all of that is obsolete now because of different suppliers.
Right.
And all you have to do is make a phone call, and there you have 2 bottles of ink running sitting in front of you the next day.
No, I mean, I know you love tattooing, and I know you had to quit for health reasons and stuff like that, but do you feel like you got it out at the right time?
I miss it every day, but tattooing has changed immensely since the time I started. It was all coil machines back then, and you never saw disposable. As a matter of fact, when I started, nobody was wearing gloves.
Right. And a lot of people that are new that blows their mind.
Yeah.
Like Cliff Raven was one of the first early adopters to push that.
Yep.
But if you look at a bunch of old pictures, man, like Zeke Owens and stuff like that, none of those guys are wearing gloves.
Bare hands.
Right.
Just wash in between each tattoo. And as a matter of fact, back in the 70s, 80s, I'd say right up until the AIDS epidemic started, you could reuse needles.
Right.
Because we had the little tube of I think it was called Benzol back then. You finish up the tattoo, cold sterilization.
Yeah. And then, we always joke about this on our Sunday show, but like I remember getting tattooed and they would do that, right? And then, or they would give you your needle and be like, oh, you can come back for touch-ups.
Yep, that's another one.
You can't even fathom doing something like that.
Oh, no, not at all.
I mean, they would shut you down in a minute. They found out you were doing it.
Oh, in a heartbeat.
Let's go back to you actually getting tattooed. Were you getting tattooed while you were in the Navy?
Yes. Yeah.
So when you were in the Navy traveling all over getting tattoos?
I was first stationed down in Pensacola, Florida. That's when I got my first real tattoo.
Okay.
And since then, it was just addiction.
Nice. They're like potato chips. You can't just have one.
That's it.
Do you remember who did your first tattoo?
I know it was in Pensacola. I think the guy's name was Lucky. He was just outside the Pensacola Naval Base.
Right on.
And it was just a real little shop, had a little table, chairs, and a few books of Flash. Okay. And this was back in '79.
When you were a kid, though, were you into art?
Yeah.
So you were always doodling, drawing?
Exactly. I'm like the teachers hated my desks.
So it was like a natural progression for you then?
Yeah. Always taking art classes in school and everything.
Since you've been tattooed by so many people, who's your favorite tattoo artist?
Bob Tyrell hasn't even been tattooing 30 years yet, and his work has always been amazing. I've followed his work since the very beginning he started. I love black and gray. I love color work. I guess my biggest influence, I'd say probably Paul Rogers, Eric Inksmith. Okay. Because I spent some time down in Florida with them after I got out of the service. Okay. And they were very big influences on me. Paul Rogers used to be traveling with the Carnival. And after I came back up north from Florida, it's like, something, I'm going to do some traveling. And I experienced what he did, but I was more so onto bike runs and swap meets and small conventions.
I'm asking out of my own curiosity. Was he as nice as everybody always says he is?
He never said a bad word about anybody.
And I've never heard anybody ever say a bad word about him.
No. The man was incredible. I'm like, he may twist words around a little bit if somebody pissed him off, but he would never outright say that he didn't like somebody.
When you were down there in Jacksonville, did you get to see the Ironworks factory?
Paul showed me how to build machines in the Ironworks factory.
Nice, dude.
It was a little shed in back of his trailer, and it was incredible.
I just interviewed Brandon Feldman, and he has the shed now out in California.
I thought Tom Beasley had it.
Tom sold it to Brandon.
I didn't know that.
And Brandon actually went out of his way to reproduce it just like you see it in the old pictures, minus the junk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was a little pack rowdy.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Yeah. He had like 5 power units up on the wall to test each machine.
But he even went as far as matching somewhere like those power units were, where the drill press originally was, all that stuff. Like, it's pretty amazing to see. It gave me like a jolt of energy.
Goosebumps.
Yeah. It was definitely interesting to see, man.
During a slow period at the Inksmith shop, Eric asked me to go down to Paul's place for a little while.
Okay.
And I ended up spending about a month with him. He showed me how to build and work on machines and the stories that man would tell.
Yeah.
Just from his career.
To be fair, though, everybody I've ever talked to about you says the same thing. Oh. So you're in good company.
I was taught by the right people.
Right.
And back in the 80s when I learned, you didn't just walk into a shop and say, I wanted to learn. They had to, trust you for one thing, and then you had to prove yourself. Back then, apprenticeships were much rougher than what they do now.
Yeah, so just so everybody knows, I was having a conversation with Chris Longo, and he walked up, and I went, I know this guy. I know this guy. I said, you're Andy Capp? He said, I'm Andy Capp. And I went, dude, I've been trying to meet you for a year, and I finally got to do it. Because I've been, honestly, since talking with Tony, he was trying to set me up with you, and I'm so stoked that I got to do this today.
Yeah, it's hard because I'm 40 miles away from Tony's shop. I'm not down there every day, so
right.
I get down there when I can. I just saw him last weekend, as a matter of fact.
Right on. So. But yeah, I'm super stoked to sit down with you today, man. I thank you so much, Andy.
Hey, my pleasure.
And Andy is retired now, and he's gonna head down to Florida. But if you see him out and about, man, make sure you stop and say hi.